Indiana is your national champion, not a Cinderella, not a fluke, the favorite. And if that sentence feels strange to you, then we need to talk about what college football has become. This is the Nitro College Football Show. I'm Burl.
I'm Street.
Like and subscribe if you love college football. So let's dive right into it. National championship. Indiana takes care of Miami in a great game. Actually had a great national championship game.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing we'll complain all about college football we want tonight. The one thing you can't say is that it doesn't deliver on the field. The games are fun, they're entertaining. And at the end of the day, you have a national champion who has never won a national championship before in a game that they probably shouldn't have won, but they did because all season long, Indiana has been consistent. If you wanted to beat Indiana, you are going to have to be perfect because they don't make mistakes. And unfortunately for Miami, they made 2 mistakes in this game, and that cost them.
Yep. Big ones. But just this is a pretty historic moment for college football because you have a school like Indiana, and I think it was up until this season they had only ever won 3 bowl games.
Yep.
And thanks to this stupid, ridiculous playoff format where every playoff game's a freaking bowl game, they doubled their bowl game total.
Yes. Indiana, who for many years was the losingest major program in Division I college football, wins the national championship just 2 years after being a losing program. It's a major story. It's a major turnaround. And like you said in the opening, though, they're not a Cinderella. They were in the playoff last year. If this would have happened last season, that's a different story.
It would have been a Cinderella last year because completely out of nowhere. This year, completely different. Absolutely freight train. Everybody they played just about. Even the really good teams, they didn't sweat too much, right?
No.
So
they probably sweated most in this game than they have all season long.
Yeah, I'd say this game and the Ohio State game. That's about it.
Yeah, well, and Penn State to a lesser extent.
Oh yeah. Gosh, how did we forget that one?
Yeah, I mean, really, probably Penn State even more so than the Ohio State game. This game's a little bit different because, like I said, this is a game that Miami easily, on paper, should have won. I think the expected win percent for Indiana was only 14% in this game. So, a computer looking at it and everything that happened, well, they think Miami wins. But let's explain why. What happened in this game? Why do we have the Indiana Hoosiers as a first-time national champion? And we'll start at the front with the defense. The defensive play of Miami in this game was fantastic. They actually really held Indiana in check. That defensive line, Mesidor, Bain, Moten, they were dominant all game long. Moten was freaking moving people. 99 there in the middle, man. He like Bain and Mesidor, were making tackles, but that guy was moving people. And I don't think Indiana had been pushed around like that all season.
No, not at all. And when watching this game, Miami actually did what they wanted to do, which is play really great defense and run the ball. Mark Fletcher had 112 yards and a couple touchdowns.
Right. The only thing that Miami did not do in this game that they have done all year long is control the clock. We talked about it last week when Miami won their last game. They had the ball for 42 minutes. They only held it for 23 minutes in this game. So the inability to string together long drives and get away from what they've liked to do all season really hurt them. But yeah, Miami in the second half, offensively, they got it going in the second half. They had 3 long touchdown drives and a 4th drive at the end of the game that ended in the interception that was another drive where they were moving the ball. Indiana, for most of this game, couldn't sustain drives at all. This wasn't a game where they came in and their offense was just clicking left and right. It wasn't. It was a struggle. Mendoza was under pressure, and they ran the ball okay, but they didn't blow you away. Miami had a lot more yards in this game. Miami had 342 yards of offense. Indiana finished with 317. So Miami lost this game really, like I said, because I think they made 2 mistakes.
Yeah.
And there's 2 mistakes that you just can't make against this Indiana team because they don't make them. The first big mistake that they made was missing that field goal. They missed that field goal, and it, yes, it was a 50-yarder, but hit that, hit the upright there. That just killed. They finally had gotten their first little drive of the game going, and hitting that field goal was just, was deflating.
Yeah.
So that was one. But then even more than that, earlier in the game, it was the blocked punt that was returned for the touchdown.
Block punt's by far the biggest play of the game. Because I mean that's points that you don't count on, right?
Right. I mean, without that blocked punt, is it a 3-0 game at half? Like, it really might have been. And the way that Miami was able to move the ball in the second half, this might be a Miami game that they could have won and won comfortably.
Well, I mean, that's the mark of a championship team, though, right?
Right.
Is you win games like that when you really shouldn't. And,
Right.
We saw Georgia do this the past few years, hell, against Ohio State in the Peach Bowl. Probably should have lost that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you talk about that game in comparison to things happened in this game. I mean, Signetti, we talked about some ballsy calls this year that Kirby made, the onside kick against Texas, the fake punt call against Ole Miss. In one drive, Signetti had 2 really ballsy calls, up 3 points. First, going for it on 4th down, throwing that out pass that was caught by Charlie Becker. And then later in that same drive on a 4th down at 12-yard line? You could kick a field goal to go up 6, but that was the first time that they'd had any sustained drive down inside, the Miami side for a long time. And you put it in your Heisman Trophy winning quarterback's hands, and he makes a fantastic play.
Exactly. I mean, that to me, that's the difference between what we've seen from really good coaches like Signetti and not as good of coaches is when when your team needs, to get the ball over the line or to get some yards, you got to put the ball in your best player's hands,
Right.
and we saw that as Georgia fans with Georgia. That didn't always happen, especially in that last game against Ole Miss down there at the goal line.
Right.
But this was brilliant. You got a Heisman Trophy winner. He can run it. He can throw it. Let him do his thing, and he did.
Yeah. It's a difference between being aggressive for sake of being aggressive, right? Going for it all the time, kind of like what Lane Kiffin does, plays the metrics, goes for it a lot.
Dan Campbell.
Yeah, but then you have guys who know when it's the right time. Kirby's one of those guys most cases. I mean, and we saw some chinks in his armor this year, against Alabama, but Signetti called the right play made the right decision. I don't know if he necessarily called the play to go for it. And, it gave them.
There's a little rumor out there that Mendoza never really ever got the play. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, other things that happened in this game, Indiana, with a chance to put the game away, made what I think was probably their only true mistake in this game. And that was the false start on, what was it, 2nd and 2? All they needed was a first down to ice the clock or potentially score a touchdown. The worst time for a false start. And that backed them up. They ended up kicking the field goal, which gave Miami one last chance to try to go down and win the game, to give ESPN the story they wanted, the redemption of poor old little Carson Beck, to go down the field and win a national championship. And, there's been a lot said today about Carson Beck and about the reaction that fans have had to him. And Jake Fromm was on Dog Nation today, and he said, He said, I think that the whole situation has gotten worse for Carson because of this media narrative. The media tried to spin this story as a redemption story that he fell back in love with football, but Georgia fans who were part of it, they saw what he was. They know that Georgia didn't treat him badly or anything. He left and he left for a better situation. He had declared for the draft and was gone. So we don't feel sympathy for him. We didn't treat him bad in this media narrative that Kirk Herbstreit seemed to be pushing. And I don't
Oh
know
my
if he was
God.
intentionally trying to cut down Georgia, but it made Georgia fans not want to root for Carson Beck. I think in most cases, we had guys who transfer, and if they left on good terms, we would still want them to win. I mean, I had no problem rooting for A.D. Mitchell when he was at Texas,
Yeah.
things like that. But I think it just soured, and that's the situation that we're at.
Yeah. And for me, like, I never really had anything against Carson. I wanted him to come back to Georgia because that would I felt he was a better quarterback. And when we found out that he was transferring to Miami for $10 million, I'm thinking to myself, that's a brilliant freaking move on his part because he had already declared for the draft and
Right.
wasn't going to go first round.
We were people keep forgetting, he declared for the draft before the Sugar Bowl.
Right.
He had the injury and he left the team. Now he came back and rejoined the team at the Sugar Bowl, but he wasn't even there for the practices.
Yeah.
And they had said that he'd stepped away from the team. So it wasn't like Georgia was expecting him back. He said that he was gone. He did his surgery and stuff on his own away from the team.
Yeah.
There was no expectation he was coming back.
And when he did come back, he was not engaged. It was
Right.
it was like the weirdest thing. I still remember just watching that game thinking, why is Carson standing on the end of the field? Like, why is he not having the headset
like I
on
said, I
helping
think
Gunner? Like, he was
because
gone.
like I said, I think he had been hurt and he left the team to go take care of his injury and he declared for the draft and he was moving on, and that's fine. Nobody pushed him out the door. Nobody treated him bad. So
Yeah.
I'm just glad. In some ways, I'm glad that they didn't win because my God, we would have never heard the end of it. It's okay. You know what? He's going to go on. He got paid a ton of money to go live in South Beach and live a good life and found his love of football again. So I hope it carries on for him. But it was fitting that the final play of his career was throwing an interception when his team had a chance to win.
Yep. Also known as the Carson Beck experience.
Yep. He didn't play a bad game in this game. He actually played pretty well. But it was a lot of what we've seen out of Miami here in the second half of the season. It was a lot of Tony and a lot of Mark Fletcher and not asking Carson Beck to do too much. That's when his numbers started getting better. When they reeled him in, went to the run game, relied on Tony. Tony had 10 catches in this game. I mean, he was a man,
Yeah. Tony and Jeremiah Smith next year they got to be your top two Heisman front runners going into the season.
I mean, they won't be because Arch Manning's there, but
I know, but I'm like from a overall talent perspective. I mean,
oh yeah,
Tony to me has been the most impressive player this season because he just burst on the scene out of nowhere and has consistently been the best player on the field. It's not like Ryan Williams, when he burst on the scene, had one great game and then fell off the face of the planet and dropped all kinds of passes. Like Tony is awesome.
He is. So, like I said, from the Indiana side, there were good plays by them, but they didn't do anything crazy in this game. They only had one sack on defense. They had the one interception at the end of the game. But they played their game. They played solid. Mendoza made some plays, and he made two incredible throws in pressure situations. One was that fourth down, and then later in the game on that third down on their last drive, both same pattern, same pass to Charlie Becker, back shoulder throw, executed perfectly. The second throw was not a great throw. Becker made a great catch, but that's the same play. They used that same play in the Ohio State game when they were trying to ice the clock to get a first down. Mendoza was really good at that back shoulder throw, and he was just cool. He was getting beat up a lot. There was some late hits that weren't called. The refereeing in this game, as we've talked about all year long with college football officiating was not good. It seemed like they had a directive to kinda let them play in the secondary, so they were letting a lot of hand fighting go, but there were a couple those late hits, early in the game on Mendoza when Indiana probably should have scored a touchdown on that drive were pretty egregious. Um, but yeah, I mean, the refereeing was not great. There was some missed calls. There was another one where Indiana receiver got tugged and they didn't call a pass interference that would have he had his guy burned. It would have been a touchdown later in the game too. So but
Yeah.
like you said, close game, fun one to watch.
I love that it came down to the wire, and the interception to essentially end the game was poetic. I guess it
Yep.
just means more. And that late interception by Jamari Sharp was actually pretty serendipitous because was it his uncle or
Yeah.
was
His
the
uncle played at Miami.
was
Yeah.
the cornerback at Miami when they lost to Ohio State, and he's the one who got called for the pass interference in the end zone,
Which was not a pass
which was
interference.
not pass interference. But
Yeah.
I thought that was, to me, like the coolest coolest thing that came out of this game.
Yeah. That was pretty cool.
Family redemption here. I mean,
Yeah.
it was really cool. But two great teams. I mean, Miami, you gotta take your hat off to Miami for their performance in the playoff as a whole. Very controversial getting in over Notre Dame, even though they beat them in the regular season. And Miami went and conquered everybody they needed to conquer, and
Yeah.
and did it with a great defense and a power running game.
Right. If this Miami team proves anything, at the end of the day, in this total era of offense and things like that, that defense can still at least get you close to winning a championship because Miami got where they were because of that dominant defensive line. That was what carried them. That's what kept them in this game when they only had 60 something yards in the first half was the play of those guys and particularly Mesidor and Bain coming off the ends. That's kept them in it. And so if you can find those guys, much like Georgia had in 21 and 22, those dominant guys that can move offensive lines around, it's a recipe for success that's going to win you a lot of football games. For
Absolutely.
Indiana, congratulations. Welcome to the national championship club. And for Kirk Cignetti, who wins a national championship in his second year. And I saw something funny. Some people were posting online that Mississippi State actually interviewed Kurt Cignetti 2 years ago before he had taken the job at Indiana, but they decided to go with Jeff Lebby instead.
Oh man.
So,
Wow.
what would have been if Kurt Cignetti had gotten the job at Mississippi State instead of at Indiana?
Man.
One of
Y-
those one of those what ifs, right?
Yep, yep. The butterfly effects, different timelines, in the multiverse.
Yep.
Um, but go, just back on Indiana and just how crazy this whole moment is in college football. Kirk Cignetti, you can't give him enough credit. He took over a program with 713 all-time losses. Put that in perspective, like Georgia has like 900 wins.
Right.
Or it's like, ballpark it, right? And won a national championship with Indiana in his first 2 seasons of being a head coach there.
Somebody said if Indiana in 2 years can win a national championship in football, it gives Georgia basketball hope.
Yes. Yeah, I saw something that said Georgia baseball is going to be the Indiana of college baseball this year because they had so many transfers.
True. Yeah, but Georgia baseball's won a national championship
True.
before.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I mean, this does change the narrative for a lot of coaches out there.
Right.
And honestly, I think it's going to be even worse for coaches moving forward. That if you don't have that instant success, even more so now with the transfer portal, it was already bad enough when you had guys coming in like Urban Meyer at Florida, Kirby Smart at Georgia, and plenty of others. Hell, even guy from Auburn with Cam Newton and Gus Malzahn too.
Yeah, Gene Chizik.
Just Chiswick, yeah. God, it was a weird name. They came in, won pretty quickly, and that makes a lot of teams with marginal records, or on the cusp records, really trigger happy about their head coach. Well, buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. You thought the coaching carousel was crazy this year? It's about to get even more so moving
Yeah.
forward over the next couple of years.
And second year success is really common actually, but it's common at programs that have been good and they find the right coach.
Right.
Second year success happens a lot. Second year success at a program that has no success in its history is a crazy thing. And like you said, is this just the iceberg of what the new wave model program is? Find a hot coach who can bring in lots of players to transfer, get support suddenly that they haven't gotten in their program before, spend a bunch of money and win big fast? Maybe it
I
is.
think it is. I think it is. But here's the thing, though. I I I don't think Indiana actually spent as much as other teams,
Well, they hadn't
but
hadn't yet.
I don't think they had to, though, because
Right.
this is where Signetti is kind of genius. This is kind of a genius part, right? He's able to find exactly the guys that he wants to bring to this team, regardless of the stars. He obviously
Right.
didn't care about that. I mean, Fernando Mendoza, never heard of him until
Y-
this year.
Well, Fernando Mendoza was a hot prospect in the transfer market. I mean, he almost ended up signing with Georgia. He was at a
Oh,
bad Cal team, but he was a pretty good player.
I know, but like, it was never a huge deal. Like
Right, right.
before yeah, you can be the best quarterback in the portal, but that doesn't mean much. I mean,
Yeah. Well, look at what they've done. So this first couple of years, they brought in he brought a lot of players with him from James Madison. And they built that team up around experience, very experienced players. That
yeah,
was one of the thing, the average age of the player, the average starter on their team was 22 years old.
right. Well, he brought those players from James Madison to really instill the culture he was trying to build.
Right, but what I'm saying is he filled those were still transfers. Yes, they weren't expensive transfers, but look at what Indiana has done in the portal this year. And they went out and they bought expensive poor players this year, high profile guys. So they went and spent money so that the philosophy is changing. Yes, he brought in players that were not as big, but he did that to build the program. But now that he doesn't have players that have been with him for a couple of years, now they are spending. So maybe it's the
Yeah.
evolution, and maybe that becomes how teams win.
Yeah.
But for Indiana, it obviously has worked, and now the question is that model sustainable? I don't know yet because we haven't seen that teams necessarily in this transfer portal mode can every year buy up players. These teams that are heavy on the transfer portal because it's still relatively new. We haven't seen that sustained success. But you look at what Indiana's done. You look at Ole Miss. Okay, they spent more actually last year than they did this year. You know, but they had a better year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And that I think you're going to see a lot of copycats
Oh, for sure.
straight up.
For sure.
Especially teams that haven't spent money before that are desperate to get a piece of it.
Yeah.
People that are hungry, like Indiana, you
Well,
know?
now people are looking at college football, and the whole blue chip ratio is out the window. It's a nice data point. Don't get me wrong. But Indiana just proved that doesn't matter if you have the right guys for your program. And that's exactly what they had. So,
Yep,
what we're going to see moving forward is there's going to be a value on experienced players. There's going to be
yep.
a premium on experienced players.
And you
And
can pay those guys to stay in school. That's
yes,
that's
yeah,
it's you're gonna and you're already seeing it. Guys that are good and would be solid NFL prospects are coming back to school because they're getting offered exorbitant money more than what they'd make at the NFL level. So you are able to convince and make them into experienced players and buy them as transfers, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely the case. And that's one of the things that I think schools like Georgia and Ohio State have done really well this over the past couple of years is you haven't seen a lot of players just, migrate to the portal. Like, yes, Georgia had the 2023 class, which is basically gone now, and will go down as like one of the worst in Georgia history. But outside of that, this year, Georgia didn't have a mass exodus, didn't have a mass exodus last year, never really had one. The
Right.
players that have transferred out have typically been guys that don't make impacts on other teams. This past year was a little different. We saw Damon Wilson transfer, we saw Carson Beck transfer, and yeah, we saw AD Mitchell transfer as well, but that was a different situation,
That was that was he was
Yeah.
going home to be with his kid.
Yeah,
That was
he wasn't like leaving for a bigger bag,
right. Right.
So and then Ohio State, when they won the national title last year, everybody couldn't stop talking about how much they spent on their roster. And the narrative for them was, oh, they hit the portal so hard, they spent all this money on the portal. They added some really good pieces from the portal thanks to Nick Saban retiring. And they spent the majority of their funds retaining the players that they had. And that's huge because Ohio State recruits really freaking well.
Right. And it's interesting because you've been hearing people talk about, the future and talking about somebody today came out and said they had, I think it was Colin Cowherd, had his 10 programs for the next 10 years of college football. Of the 10 schools that he think will be successful in the next 10 years. And
Was, that,
Georgia and Alabama weren't on his
was it
list.
all Big Ten schools?
It was and it's exactly what we've talked about. It's the oil schools in the South and
Yeah.
then Big Ten schools with big alumni bases. And, if that's gonna be the case, then yeah, then that's what's gonna be. But, Georgia spent its money this offseason retaining its talent. That's why we didn't pick up a lot of guys in the portal. We didn't need to.
Yeah.
We only lost 13 and
Exactly.
they picked up 8 guys in the transfer and people were like, "Georgia missed out on all these big name transfers." Well, they didn't have a lot of money extra to offer to transfers because they spent money to retain the players they had.
Right. And when you retain players like Georgia has, which they've been recruiting over the years, that's a lot of talent that you've
Yep,
been investing in and developing. So you don't want them to come to Georgia to get developed and then go, give that benefit to another school.
right.
And that's what Georgia's fighting is, okay, if we can, and it makes a lot of sense. If you can get them in the door, you have a much better chance of keeping them in the house. It's the whole, it's cheaper to keep a customer than it is to find a new one.
Yep.
It's that whole mindset and that whole principle.
So uh, wrapping all this up with Indiana, that's the real challenge for them because they made the splash with a bunch of transfers. Now they are just seemingly shifting a little bit of their focus already. We know that they have big backers backing them. Mark Cuban's admitted it that he is helping back them.
Well,
They
I mean,
have the illustrious
he's on the sideline and on every post game interview now.
right,
I mean, he's
and
basically the owner of the Indiana Hoosiers right now.
right, and they have the largest alumni base in the country. So we know they're spending money. So it'll be that transition. Can
So,
they mistake?
largest alumni base and a billionaire.
Right. Right, and you've got, those schools up there in the Big Ten, they have those huge alumni bases, and they have these big billionaires that are their backers, and, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes, but congratulations to Indiana, national champions for the first time here after the 2025 season here in 2026.
Absolutely. Congrats, Indiana. And if you're watching with us live, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you love college football, like and subscribe, drop a comment, hit us up on the socials at Nitro CFB. We're here every week. We'll be here in the off season as well, doing our thing. And we would love for you to spend your time with us. So, on the topic of more college football, is this the death of college football? The transfer portal is open year round. The playoffs keep expanding and the schedules don't make sense anymore. So when you throw in the fact that, you have all these Big Ten schools with these large, huge alumni bases and essentially endless funds coming in, at what point is college football truly dead? Because to me, college football has always been more of a rural type game. It's for a lot of rural people, and then you have the NFL. It's all major cities, and that's what we've always seen. But now it's completely flipped on its head. It's not that anymore.
So you may hear that question: is college football dead? And a person who doesn't pay attention or just watches the games on Saturday and that's it would say, of course not. Look at all this competition. Look at these great playoff games we've had. Look at all this. This was so much fun. Look at this great national championship game we had. And they're kind of missing the point. I've seen this question, is this the death of college football? I've seen it all around the internet today from people who follow the game. And for many of us who have loved the game for what college football is, I think the answer might be yes. Why do I say that? Because, like I said, the competition on the field, the games themselves, we will always love that. That will always exist.
It's football.
At the heart, it's football. At the heart of the game, that's the sport. But college football has always been a little bit different. The NFL is that polished game on the field. It's the equal competition. It's the free agency and the movement and the draft and the rebuilding. What has died, I think, or what is dying, is the mystique that was college football. It was always different than the NFL. It was smaller, it was local, and it had more passion. Those players that came to your school as 18 years old out of high school, those were your guys. They were with you for 3, 4, 5 years. You got to know them. You knew their numbers. You knew what they looked like. They were local. They were your guys on a smaller scale. If you were a college student, they were your classmates. They were your peers. They weren't these larger than life characters that made millions of dollars that were different people. They were just like you. They just happened to be good at sports, and you knew guys like that growing up.
Yeah, they weren't just a jersey and a helmet.
Right. And now, and we've seen it, especially this offseason, because this offseason, the portal has just been out of control. Everyone is up for grabs. Everyone, even your most loyal players, your guys that are advocates for your school, that from day one, when they started getting recruiting, they put on your colors and they were out there recruiting other guys. And in every interview, they talk about how much they love the program and everything. Even those guys can be bought. And we saw that with what happened with Nate Frazier. And even if Nate Frazier never had intention to go, and it was just his agents playing Ohio State to get money, the fact that it happened, it's there. And so the players are part of it. The uncontrollable shifting of players, the transfer portal, everybody can be bought. There are no contracts, there are no loyalties. That's part of it. And you know what? Without any type of regulation, that's not going to end. You're going to continue to hearing the stuff that we heard all through this season. Players suing schools, schools suing players, players suing the NCAA. I mean, look at the situation that happened today with Darian Mensah. Okay. Darian Mensah went to Duke, and Duke paid him a lot of money to go there, and he signed a 2-year contract to pay a lot of to play football for Duke. Had some pretty good success this year. They won the conference championship on the last day that the portal's open. He says, I'm going in the portal because rumors are, Miami has offered him, who knows, but some are saying up as much as $8 to $10 million to come to Miami.
The Carson Beck deal.
Even more so. I mean, Carson Beck was like 4.5. Like, this is more. So today, as opposed to letting him go, Duke University has sued Darian Mensah because they want him to be their quarterback next year. So then the question is,
awkward.
You're going to sue him to be there, and he doesn't. Does he want to be there? And it happened a couple weeks ago too with the kid at Washington.
Yeah.
But even in that situation, I think he didn't have as ironclad of the situation. I looked a little bit about the stuff that was in the lawsuit today. I mean, it's like, here's his deal: name, likeness, and image. All of this stuff that was promised. So at what point does Darian Mensah, who I think is draft eligible, he was a class of 23 kid, at what point does he just up and leave and go to the draft? I don't know, because I think there's more money for him in school.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of what happens for him, he's gonna be fine. Like,
Right.
financially,
For him,
like,
he's fine.
he stays at Duke, he gets that deal. You know, if he goes to Miami, we don't know what will happen in the courts, but I think the big legal hurdle that we're seeing right now is that Duke owns his NIL rights, his name, image, and likeness. They do not have a quarterback or a contract for him to play quarterback for the University of Duke.
Right.
Duke University. Yep. Sorry.
That's all right.
and
yeah,
and that's kind of like the problem that we've really started seeing recently is people will sign these NIL deals, but that doesn't mean that they sign to play a position at your school.
Yeah. So, like I said, there's no loyalty. There's no such thing as contracts, and there's no regulation. So until you either make these guys employees or the NCAA steps up, this ain't going to change. But let's talk a little bit about some of the side effects of this transfer portal madness, especially what we've seen this year. So this year, they changed the transfer portal to a single transfer portal window.
Which was good.
That happened, which was good, but it happened while some teams were still playing. And what did that do? So before I get into that, one of the reasons that I say that college football is dying is one of the things about college football was it was always building towards something. The regular season every week meant something because every week mattered. Your rivalries mattered because you weren't playing for a playoff spot. Only 2 teams were going to play for a national championship. Everybody else was playing for pride. They were playing for bowl games, which meant something. They were playing to beat their rivals, which meant something. You didn't beat your rival, you weren't going to play for a national championship. Ohio State couldn't lose to Michigan 5 times in a row and be a national champion. So one of the unique things we have is regional rivalries. People who, when they chose to go places, were choosing between schools because they were close. Well, you've heard that. That's one of the things I loved about college football. And it's been devalued. Now, when you get to the postseason, they are talking about expanding this postseason, which is ridiculous and stupid. It's already too long. But another problem with that, and this goes along with the transfer portal, is that because this year the transfer portal opened up while teams are still playing, yes, for the teams that were still left, their focus was on their next playoff game. But for everybody else, the season was over. Their focus was on next year. Who is my team getting in the portal? That's all I care about. There's a game next week. Who cares? It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's almost like somebody wrote it best.
That's why
they
Kiffin
said
left at the time he did.
Right. It's almost like somebody I wrote this. The national championship game felt like a consolation prize this year. Like, you didn't win national championship? Okay. Like, we're on the next season. Our season's already over. Who cares? You win, great for you. I didn't feel buzz coming into this national championship game, and I'm a college football diehard who talks about it every week on the internet.
Yeah, it's bad. And now they're even talking about expanding the playoff even more, which is
Right.
absolutely ridiculous. I The people that are in charge of this shit are dumb. They're absolutely stupid, and it makes me think that they don't like the game that they're in charge of. And it pisses me off to see this happen because you've got the Big 10 pushing for what, 24 teams? Something
Yeah.
stupid like that. And the
Which
SEC,
which which continues which would continue to devalue the regular season, which would continue to value rivalries, which would continue to value these things that made the season special, that made it not the NFL where you could go and lose 5 games and still make the playoffs.
it sucks. It absolutely sucks because you have these rivalry games that are huge games and you get your one shot and you get bragging rights for the year. That doesn't really matter as much anymore. Just look at Ohio State, Michigan last
And
year.
even if you beat a rival, hell, you might play him again in the playoffs. How many
More than
rematches do
likely,
we have this year?
you will, especially if they expand it even more. I mean,
Right.
this year you had 12 teams, 2 of them that had no business even sniffing it, and tons of rematches, which some of them end up being good games, but still, it's a rematch. You already saw that game this year.
And by continuing to add more games, you know what you add? You add more risk. You're making the season longer, which is increasing the likelihood that you have injuries. And injuries have always been part of the game, but these are college kids. These are not professional seasoned bodies. And with the spreading out of the rosters, you don't have the depth you had. So you have this great, awesome team that wins every game, but suffers a couple of bad injuries, and suddenly they're getting shellacked by somebody who slipped into the playoffs at 24, so 3-4 losses, but because they lose their quarterback or they lose somebody key. Is that representative of a national champion? Is that representative of the best teams? It's just a tournament at that point. It's more like
Yeah.
you're wanting to go to the college basketball method. It's whoever gets hot. And that's not what college football was. That's what the pros are. So
Yeah,
to me,
you get rematches in the pros. That we're fine with that because we know we're going to get that because someone has to win your division and someone has to come out of your bracket to actually represent.
and there's only 32 teams, bro. We have
Exactly.
135 teams in D1.
Yeah.
Like,
All of the things that we love about college football and what has made it special, the rankings. That's your that is the life has been the lifeblood of college football since they started doing it because that's what everybody argues about for
yeah.
better or for worse. That has been the backbone of the college football business. And then we don't have meaningful bowl games anymore. Every single playoff game is a stupid bowl game.
And then bowl games don't mean anything anymore because your good players sit out. Players don't care. Players are already in the portal. They're thinking about their next
Yeah.
spot.
I mean, when we had less playoff games, if you actually made it to the Sugar Bowl, that was a great season for you in the SEC.
The SEC championship 3 years ago meant something. Georgia's won the last 2 SEC championships, and people act like Georgia has been a bad team the last 2
Mm-hmm.
years nationally. You look no further. You talk about rankings. The AP rankings came out today. Georgia at number 6, behind Oregon, who got shellacked by Indiana and lost to Indiana twice. Georgia beat everybody on their schedule, and they won a conference championship. So the rankings that used to give us debate now, oh, they're just where you finished in the playoffs. We're just going to rank you that way.
Mm-hmm.
That I like I said, the question we asked, is college football dead? what I loved and was unique about college football, it just may be. College football now, to me, is no more it's little more than NFL Light or the NFL G League. I will always love my school, and I will always love the games. The games are fun, and I will love the uniqueness of those game days. But everything that's gone on the last few years has sucked the life out of the spirit that was college football.
Yeah, college football's on life support in terms of what we knew of college football. The business of college football is
Is
never better.
booming.
It's never better. I mean, they're making more money than they've ever made in the history of the sport, and everybody's getting paid, which is good. That's great. I'm glad everybody's making money. That's awesome. That's the American way, right?
Yep.
The thing that sucks about all this is we've lost the charm, we've lost the specialness, and now what we're seeing is a purely 100% free market run amok in college football. And it will regulate itself at some point because that's just how a free market works. There's going to be overcorrections that will happen. So, like with this year, we saw 10, what, 4 to 5,000 players in our transfer portal still haven't been signed.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's potentially 4,000 players whose college career is over.
Yeah.
And that's because they either got bad advice from a real agent or someone they just know who's representing them, and their college football career is done. So next year, maybe I would expect that there would be less people entering the portal than we saw this year. Could be completely wrong, but you're going to have that segment of that 4,000 that took that bad advice. Maybe a third of that
Yeah.
thinks differently, because now they're like, oh, well, I could take a chance and hit the portal, not get signed, or I can keep getting reps here at this college, getting paid, getting education, getting food, all the perks, and
Yeah.
then try again.
And the one other thing that I would say about college football, the concept potentially being dead, is college football was a young man's game. The NFL was for your professionals, your seasoned guys. But when you see a team win a national championship and the average player on their team is 22 years old, and there's an NFL team that's the average age is 24, and you see guys fighting to get 6th and 7th years of eligibility, suing for those rights, and guys coming back to school who Ty Simpson going who Ty Simpson getting offered $6 million to come back to school and not taking it. Big respect to Ty Simpson. But other guys, or Trinidad Chambliss, who would never be hotter as a draft pick. He's not a big guy. He's coming off this great run in the playoffs. He should go pro. He's fighting to go back because they're going to pay him all this money. That's a change. So, question to our viewers: is college football dead? Let us know. Let us know what you think in the comments below.
Yep. And if you're watching with us, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, give us a sub. We're on the road to 500 subs, and we appreciate every single sub we get. All right, so now we're gonna switch gears. We've been complaining like a bunch of two grumpy old men, because we are, and now we're gonna talk about some silliness. Okay, our way too early top tens,
Because,
because
as you just said, we love rankings.
we love it's the I said it's the lifeblood of college football. It
And you've seen them all over the place today.
Yeah.
Everybody under the sun has released they're too early for too early top 10 rankings for next year. What makes a top 10 team? in this day and age. How do you even know how teams are constructed?
All I know is like what we're about to say is probably completely wrong.
Let's talk about some of the teams that were in the top 10 this year preseason. Penn State, Clemson, like,
Texas?
yeah, they at least were a decent team.
Yeah, but they were preseason number 1.
Very true, very true. So like I said, we've seen a lot around the final AP poll came out. I already mentioned it. It was stupid. It was the final four teams and then a bunch of junk after that. And somehow Alabama was still in the top 10. Why? But let's talk about our top 10. Who do we think should be in the top 10?
Yeah, the most irresponsible top 10. Let's go.
Let's go. So I'll start with my number one. At number one, I've got Ohio State. Number one for most of this year. They returned the best player in college football. They return a solid quarterback. They've got other receivers. That defense was great all year, but this was not supposed to be their year. This was supposed to be a little bit, not really a rebuilding year, but this was not supposed to be the year.
Right.
That was last year. They've got a lot coming back. They've bought up some guys in the portal like they do, and they develop. So at number one, I've got Ohio State.
I also have Ohio State, and for all the same reasons. No reason to change that. But at number 2, I have our good old Georgia Bulldogs. And the reason that I have them at number 2 is all of the money that Georgia has spent in the offseason is to retain talent. And we saw one of the youngest teams in college football last year grow up throughout the season. We saw a defense that couldn't stop anybody at the beginning of the season become dominant at the end. We saw an offensive line that had 3 freshmen playing on it grow up and become a dominant offensive line. And we expect this to continue. The receiving room is still full of talent. You still have amazing talent at the tight end position too. And you kept your running backs. You have 2 running backs that could be RB1 at any school.
Yep.
Any school. And, Georgia did a good job of supplementing some needs in the portal, getting the kid out of Auburn at the end. I think that's going to be a huge, huge get. When you pair him with Gabe Harris, that's going to be one of the best pass rushing tandems in college football. Yep. So give me Georgia at number 2, plus Peyton Woodry's coming back.
So I agree with everything you said. Now I have Georgia at 3. Schedule's going to be tough next year. And like you said, there's some unknowns there. But my number 2 is Texas. So Texas this year was still a solid defensive team, but they struggled on offense. But they got better as the year went on. Arch Manning really kind of came into his talents late in the season. And if you paid attention to what they've done in the portal, they bought the best wide receiver available. They bought one of the top 2 or 3 running backs available. They already had a 5-star receiver who's very good. So now you have 2 5-star receivers. You have a running back who ran for like 1,400 yards last year. They got an offensive lineman. So they supplemented with expensive pieces on offense, which was where they struggled last year. They've got a lot of their core coming back on defense. I'm sure they filled in some other holes there as well. There was a reason they were number 1 last year. A lot was the hype of Arch Manning, but we hadn't seen him do it. At the end of last year, I watched him play in their bowl game. I saw it in Athens, even though they lost that game. He was really coming into it. So whereas last year I had my doubts about Arch because why would I trust him? He hadn't played. I've seen it now. And they were really bad. They couldn't run the football, and he got better as the year went on. I just think they're a super talented football team. And they don't play Georgia in the regular season next year. So
Alabama.
Yeah. Yeah, they always luck out and they get these easy schedules. So, give me Texas at 2, Georgia at 3. Who you got at 3, bro?
I have Notre Dame at 3.
And I have them at 4. So,
Notre Dame has a ton of guys returning. They have, most importantly, their quarterback returning as a sophomore, CJ Carr, who played fantastic throughout this season. And couple that, they, in the portal, they went forever without signing anybody, and then all of a sudden they signed like five stars,
yeah.
like on
Yeah.
one day. I mean, it's just insane. And couple
And
that,
Jeremiah Love's gone, but Jadarian Price is back, and we know that he's a stud.
yeah,
Um,
and we know that
they've
they're
recruited
angry.
they've recruited well, and they are angry, and their schedule is a joke.
Exactly.
Like, really, like, it was bad this year. It's a joke next year. Um, so I think it's a combination that they're gonna be a really good damn football team, and, the schedule's a joke. So
Yeah, they've got a
I have
very
them at 4.
favorable, yeah, very
Yeah,
favorable schedule, but super talented, loaded team with a great coach.
yep. So who'd you have at 4? Because like I said, I had Notre Dame at 4.
I have Oregon at 4.
Yeah, they got Dante Moore back, which that helps because otherwise it would have been Raviola playing quarterback for him.
Which is still funny. He didn't double transfer.
He didn't. I thought he did transfer. I thought he went in the portal. He hasn't
Uh,
signed anywhere yet, but I thought he did go back in the portal.
Maybe I missed that.
Um, yeah. So talk about Oregon a little bit. Sorry, cut you off.
Yeah, Dante Moore coming back. You know what Dan Lanning's been able to do over the past few years. There's no reason to think he's not going to do that again and just continue what he's been building. And when you saw Oregon play in the playoffs, they did pretty well.
Yeah,
The Indiana game notwithstanding, but everybody got destroyed by Indiana. Um, they're still a really great football team, and I think they have more talent coming back than some of the other teams that we're going to talk about in the top 10.
yeah. All right. I guess I'll go at number 5. I've got Indiana. So we've talked ad nauseum about what happened this year, and we're going to see what happens next year. But as I mentioned, they went and spent money in the portal. They got some high priced guys. They got a quarterback. They got a receiver. They got a running back. They went and got guys in the portal. So now the question is, does it carry on after the guys from James Madison and the seniors and everything leave and move on? Can this magic that they've found over these last 2 years that got them to a national championship this year, can they carry it on? I think they're gonna be a solid football team. Their schedule is a little bit tougher in the Big Ten. They've got big games with Ohio State in the middle of the season, but I think they're going to be good. So I've got Indiana at 5.
Yeah, I actually have them at 6, and at 5 I have Texas A&M.
So I swapped. So I
Yeah,
had Indiana at 5. I got Texas A&M at 6.
and the reason I have A&M ahead of Indiana is because A&M is returning a lot of players, right?
Yep.
Especially the most important position, quarterback.
And they were so good all year.
They
And
were.
they lost to Texas at the end of the year, and that just killed their momentum. And then they ran into Miami defensive buzzsaw on a day where there was crazy wind at their stadium. You know,
Yeah, and when you think about it, a lot of people gave Texas A&M a lot of crap because the teams that they beat were the bottom half of the SEC. Well, you know who else had a similar schedule? The national
Indiana.
champions.
Indiana.
Yeah. So it it doesn't matter who you play at this point anymore. I mean, really, you don't have an incentive to play a tough schedule at all.
Right.
You're incentivized to not play a tough schedule. So if you get the benefit of having an easy schedule, bravo. But
Yep.
Texas A&M, a lot of Reed coming back, and Elko is just a great coach. So
Yep. So my 7, I've got Oregon. We've already talked about Oregon. I think getting Dante Moore back will be huge. See what they've learned from, losing in the playoffs the last 2 years and continue to get better. But, what, in 2 years in the Big Ten, they've lost 1 game in the regular season. So
Not bad.
pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah. My number 7 is Oklahoma. So you'll see a common theme with with my picks here. Oklahoma, they're going to have they're going to have a good defense. As long as Brent Venables is their coach, they're going to have a good defense. But they also have John Mateer coming back, and you got to expect that, full off season worth of healing and practice and treatment and all that stuff, that he should come back next year like the John Mateer we saw at the beginning of this
Right.
year.
I mean, people quickly forgot that he was like the Heisman front runner the first 5 weeks of the season,
Yeah,
and was killing it. And that hand injury and then everything, it sent their offense into a tumble.
it did.
And they still work, and their defense was good enough to get them to the playoff.
Which is
And,
incredible. I mean, they were still good enough to keep winning and winning and make the playoff, even when their offense couldn't, do everything they needed it to do.
yeah. So at number 8, I have BYU, a team that lost 2 games this year to the same team, to Texas Tech. And that Texas Tech team was a combination of transfers, high profile, expensive transfers, but people forget that their 2 main leaders on defense were their 2 linebackers that were not new transfers. Jacob Rodriguez and the other guy that had been there. And Rodriguez was a transfer, but he'd been there for a few years. Texas Tech's going to lose some of that leadership. So their new culture, their mercenary culture, we're going to see if it holds true. But BYU only lost to them, and I think they're going to get better. Bachmeier will be back next year. Maybe they get healthier at the running back position. 2 straight years, BYU has had 2 of the top 5 years in its program history. So I've got BYU. I think they will be the class of the Big 12 conference next year, and it'll just come down to them and Texas Tech again. But I'm going to go with BYU.
I was really close with putting BYU in my top 10. I really wanted to, but at number 8, I actually went with Texas. And it's because Arch Manning, we saw what he did at the end of the year, the talent that they have gotten through recruiting and the portal. I mean, Cam Coleman coming in, that's a huge pickup. And you pair him with the other kid that's there, the other 5-star. I mean, that's going to be a dangerous tandem.
Wingo.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be right up there, pretty close to, Jeremiah Smith and Tate. So,
Yeah.
I mean, not saying that they're necessarily Jeremiah Smith, because no one really is, but that type of production is what you could see out of that. And then
Cam Coleman did what he did at Auburn this year with Jackson Arnold playing quarterback. So
which is impressive.
You give him a competent quarterback, and you saw some of the plays he made. Hell, he might be on Jeremiah Smith's level. So you give him competent quarterback play. I think you're going to see a huge year out of him.
I do too. So number 9, we actually agree.
First time since Ohio State. Yeah, we got Miami at number 9. Now this is interesting because a lot of this one depends on what happens with Mensa. If they get Darren Mensa, I feel a lot more confident at Miami at number 9. They lose a lot. Miami's going to lose a lot of these star defensive players, but they're going to have this momentum and stuff.
Yeah. And they're
if
losing
they get Mensa in there,
Fletcher as well.
Fletcher, yeah. But they got Malachi Toney, and if they've got a quarterback, you got to feel like that offense is going to be pretty dynamic because all we talked about, Mensa was fantastic at Duke this year. So,
yeah, I mean, a lot of people consider him the best all around quarterback.
Yeah.
At the end of the season this year. So, and then at 10, I'm between Ole Miss and Michigan.
Yeah, I couldn't put Michigan there, man. I think too much happened.
Well, so here's my thing though. They've both of these teams still have a lot of talent on there. Ole Miss seemed to stabilize pretty quickly under Golding,
Yeah,
and they look like they're going to be formidable. Michigan, yes, they went through some shit. It's no doubt about that. But with Kyle Whittingham coming in, I mean, that's instant stability,
right.
right? And then you still have Bryce Underwood. You still have a ton of talent there. You lost Justice Haynes, but you lost him halfway through the season anyway, and you're
Yeah.
still pretty good at running the rock. So,
And their defense will be solid. They've got a
yeah,
lot of talent on defense.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
if they hired really anybody other than Kyle Whittingham, I I wouldn't have them in the top
Yeah.
10.
So Ole Miss is interesting. They could potentially be there, but I think it all depends on the eligibility of Trinidad Chambliss. They've got Deuce Knight coming in, who we saw him fantastic for one game against a scrub team for Auburn, but you don't know. Um, if he's there, then I could see Ole Miss around that number 10 spot. If he's not there, Ole Miss barely makes the top 25 for me. And I know that could be controversial. Other teams I considered here, obviously Texas Tech. It's been a lot of money. You got a taste of success. Um, Alabama, they've lost a ton and so, I saw some preseason stuff have them 17, 18, but they're still Alabama. They still have a lot of talent on that roster. They're still going to have some players. But for my number 10, I went with USC. One of the best offenses in the country this year. Yeah, they lost those two receivers, but Maivo's back. And they were a little bit better on defense this year than they had been in the past under Lincoln Riley. This could be a win now season for Lincoln Riley because he catches a
But
lot of heat.
is it though? Because it's felt like that every year for him.
I mean, they improved last year, so that's why I feel like this could be. They were better than they've been. I think what they finished 9-4.
Actually, I take back what I just said. Kirk Signetti just won the national championship at Indiana in his first 2 years head coaching. So yeah, Lincoln Riley's going to be on the hot seat.
So for me, I put USC at number 10.
I like it. So yeah, so that is our way too early, irresponsible top 10.
Yep.
Let us know what you think in the comments. Who do you have in your top 10? Where are we just absolutely wrong? Let us know. We
Yep.
take all comments. We'll respond. We love the debate.
Yep. So next week's going to be a special show as long as we don't get iced in and our computers and internet don't work down here in the South. Next week, it's time, Burl, for the first annual Nitro Show year-end awards.
The Nitro CFB year-end awards, baby.
And get ready, because there ain't no MVP. There ain't no Heisman. Nah.
Ain't no
These are going to be
Maxwell
fun.
Award winners up in here.
Nah. We got to do it fun. So tune in next week for the Nitro Show college football year-end awards.
And
also,
it's going to be beautiful.
And also wanted to say thanks. This was our national championship show, so this marks the end of the 2025 season. While we will be doing some wrap-up stuff, that's really next year. So this was our season finale, our second year here on the podcast.
Season 2.
And we appreciate everybody who's joined us. So, from Burl and myself, thanks for sticking with us, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Absolutely. And if you're still with us, hit that like button, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, have them subscribe, get everybody in on it. We want to build a community here. So just join in on the fun there.
All right. Well, until next week, I'm Street.
I'm Burl.
Go Dogs.
Thank you for your attention on this matter.